Cybersecurity attacks detected in the Kenyan cyberspace grew by 108% to 5.6 million in 2013. Stakeholders in the industry are finding solutions to counter these threats. Here is an interview with Ben Roberts, the CEO of Liquid Telecom in Kenya, on what can be done to make Kenyan cyberspace more secure. Let's begin with the investment that Liquid Telecom has made in the region, looking at infrastructure and of course looking at how much and how long in terms of kilometers.
Okay. So, I mean, our initial investment in East Africa was in the acquisition of 5 companies in Uganda and Rwanda and in Kenya, of course. So, that being last March, since then we have made a number of big projects, repairing some of the fibre networks that are there and adding extra links of fibre. So, we link down to the Tanzanian border from Nairobi down to Tanzania, and with that allowed us to complete an East African ring. So we have all of our internet traffic is basically going from Nairobi to Dar es Salaam to Kigali to Kampala and back to Nairobi. Total investment we've made here so far is $20 million. So $10 million of that in data center, and $10 million in fibre reparations and fibre expansion. We are now embarking in Nairobi here on another project to really put in the highest speed network in the Nairobi metro that there is. So I mean, a lot of people here are digging up the roads again, putting in new fibre, doing the same things that has been done already a few years ago, but we are preparing for the next leap of technology.
All right, you did mention acquisition, and before we get to that, and to the end that you've just mentioned with regards to the connectivity that we've seen in the region, how does Kenya fare in terms of internet penetration, and not just in the region, comparing to sub-Saharan Africa? And of course, you can mention something on speeds.
Speeds, I mean, the speeds are dependent upon the technology, but the number of users, I think here is pretty much double from the stats we see. Kenya is the most in East Africa, and Tanzania is next after that, and Kenya has got more than double the users of Tanzania from the research that we've read and from our own collected data. And in terms of the speeds, that really depends on the access networks. So here we do have some high-speed access networks. There is quite a lot of fibre deployed to businesses, but even though a lot of the buildings here in Nairobi, we see all these high-rise buildings, although there's fibre in there that's capable of delivering many gigabits per second, the speed is perhaps 1/100th of them. They're actually using is 1/100th of the available speed on the link.
So you're talking of very poor utility of bandwidth.
And I think the uptake of the bandwidth that's available hasn't been made, and a couple of different factors. Sometimes it's affordability and cost, but in the case of the corporate world and the big office blocks I'm talking about, that isn't really the case. It's really more about use of the applications. So let's say a business has 300 employees. If it takes an internet link but decides not to let its 300 employees use the internet, only to use it for its internal services, it might only use a very small amount of bandwidth. But if it then lets them all use the internet for anything it wants, it might use much more bandwidth. So I guess it's down to IT managers and their policies how they perceive to save costs in the access they give and the applications that they use. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about security, which has been a growing concern when you're dealing with telecommunication and, of course, the sector of technology. And, of course, just recently we saw the cloud infrastructure for Apple Inc. also being infiltrated.
Yeah.
And just a couple of weeks back, we saw also the Kenyan government pulling down most of its sites because of security concerns. And it looks like Kenya is losing about 2 billion shillings if we go by what the ICT cabinet secretary did mention. What decisive measures need to be taken to ensure that this is arrested?
You can never arrest it. So the financial loss is always there, and even a telecoms company like us, we've been hit by certain cyber crimes over the past experience that I've had. For me, the basics, before you look at technology and skills to learn about cybersecurity, about firewall protections and things like that. That's all needed, but the basics are most important. So physical security is the single most basic point. A few years ago, I was traveling in Nigeria, I was out doing an engineering job, and the guy dropped me off. He was dropping me off and back to my hotel, and he went to do a call out in a bank. And he says, "Oh, do you mind if I do this because it's on the way?" So he said, "That's fine." So I waited in the van. He went up to do his job, and after 45 minutes, he'd been a while, so I was a bit bored. So I just wandered in. It was a Saturday. I wandered in through the doors. I saw a security guard there. I said, "Oh, have you seen John anywhere?" He goes, "Yeah, he's up the stairs there." So I wandered up the stairs. And then wandered in. Nobody asked me anything who I was. I found an open door, and then John was there working on the servers. But in that room, I saw the biggest firewall I've ever seen. It was 3 racks worth of firewall equipment, probably very well configured. But I'd walked straight in there.
Yeah.
I could have gone in with my laptop or a memory stick and taken the data. So physical security is absolutely step one. The next is really law enforcement around it. I mean, so in Kenya here, just after I arrived, we had a small attempted theft, so somebody tried to steal a domain, it was an internet domain, for financial gain. We actually I found out who it was, getting their address, their telephone number, exactly who they were. Some of our staff knew the individual because he was in the internet industry. I think he was a blogger or something like that. So I said, okay, so I almost laughed as I said it, but I said, okay, should we just call the police cybercrimes unit to get this guy arrested? And,
Sorry, it's comical.
And my staff laughed just as you have. Yeah, they get the exact reaction.
Yeah.
And I mean, I knew there wasn't really going to be a police cybercrimes unit.
So cyber security needs to be a top priority for the country.
Our top priority. So it's getting physical security and then the cyber security, but having laws around it and people that can enforce those laws. I mean, it's pointless talking about it if you don't have specialist units in your law enforcement that can deal with it. Yeah.